Thank you for joining me. I expect that this will be my last briefing to you in the course of UNCED, and thank you for joining me again. Yesterday, I explained to you that due to circumstances beyond his control, it proved impossible for Prime Minister Miyazawa to come to Rio de Janeiro. But because of his very strong desire to convey his thoughts and also the picture of how Japan is grappling with the problem of the global environment, we desired very much that ways could be found for the statement that had been prepared for presentation by Prime Minister Miyazawa to this conference might somehow be conveyed to the people participating in this conference. I referred to one possible option yesterday. Having explored various options, the way his statement has been conveyed to the conference was that the president of the conference, President Collor of Brazil, announced at the end of the morning session today that because of last-minute problems, the Prime Minister, who was scheduled to address the conference this morning, was unable to be here. And for that reason, the President asked that his statement be circulated as an official record of this conference. And I believe the copies are available here. And I will be, well, let me address certain main points of his statement. In this speech, in this statement rather, the Prime Minister places the problem of environment and development in a global context of the search for a new international order. He makes the observation that we should aim at constructing a new era in which we all live as global citizens. And in that context, environmental protection and sustainable development, that is, the pursuit of environmental protection and sustainable development in tandem is an important prerequisite. Then he refers to the ways in which Japan is grappling with the problems of environment. He mentions, for example, that we announced the aim of stabilizing emissions of CO2 by the year 2000 at about 1990 level. And in that connection, we will be signing the Framework Convention on Climate Change this afternoon. We will also be signing the Convention on Biological Diversity. And on the occasion of the signing, we'll make our position known with respect to the financing provisions of the article. He also mentions that we are trying to front-load the commitment under the treaty and the protocol on the depletion of the ozone layer, and that we are trying to accelerate the phase-out of the related substances with a view to eliminating them in the year 1996. he sees the process of dealing with the problem of environment and development, a global process, just beginning in this conference. He also recounts Japan's experience, which I have had occasions to explain to you, and he expresses his conviction that environment and development are not only compatible, but also mutually reinforcing in the long run. And then he makes the observation that Japan, being a country which has achieved its prosperity through the utilization of the resources of the earth, feel that we should contribute actively to international efforts for environment and development. And he also makes the observation that it is important for us to work towards the objective of creating a Japan which is gentle to the earth, which objective being in consonance with his priority policy objective domestically, which is to realize a decent society in which people enjoy true satisfaction. In the context of our cooperation with the developing countries, he refers to the IDA and the GEF, and then he addresses how we may be facing the question of our environment-related assistance or environment-related official development assistance. He notes that in the 3 years from 1989 to 1991, in terms of environment-related official development assistance, Japan has provided more than 400 billion yen. That is, in US dollars, about 3.1 billion American dollars. So this is over 3 years. So on a 1 year average basis, it is a little more than $1 billion per year. And he announces Japan's intention to contribute further to the goal of preserving the Earth's forests, waters, and atmosphere, and to enhancing the capacity of developing countries to tackle environmental problems. And to this end, we intend to expand our environment-related ODA, bilateral and multilateral, to the order of around 900 billion to 1 trillion yen. That is 7 to 7.7 billion American dollars during the five-year period to come. That is fiscal year 1992 to 1996. Roughly 7 to 7.7 billion American dollars over 5 years would mean an average of 1.4 to slightly more than 1.5 billion dollars. So if you compare it to the previous 3-year average, it would mean an increase of about 50% in terms of official development assistance. I might add that how you define environment-related official development assistance is not really a question which has thoroughly been thrashed out in the international community. Our definition of environment-related assistance may not coincide with the definition used by other countries. I think it's fair to say that Japan's definition of environmental assistance may be a somewhat narrow one. We have in mind, for example, such areas as the living environment or the habitat, forest conservation and reforestation, afforestation, anti-pollution measures, conservation of the natural environment, and anti-disaster measures, and so forth. This may be, I think, Well, I think this certainly is a somewhat narrower definition of environment-related official development assistance than, for example, the whole broad areas contained under Agenda 21. And for your information, we have also prepared for distribution to you a fact sheet concerning what we have been doing in the field of environment aid in the past. And this will give you some indication of the sort of areas in which we have been working. So with that, yes?
Prime Minister's statement being part of the official record of the conference?
Yes, that is what President Collor announced, that he asked that this statement be circulated as an official record of this conference. Yes?
I think we have the impression of some amount of disarray in the Japanese performance here at the conference. And I'm wondering if we can interpret this as a political decision by Japan, perhaps not to take the more aggressive role that it might have taken or that it seemed it might take in the World Environmental Affairs.
Well, without your specifying what you mean by disarray, and I don't necessarily mean to ask you to specify it, it's a bit difficult for me to comment on that, but there is no doubt in our genuine desire to make whatever contribution we can to this globally important goal of environmental conservation and growth. Yes?
Has Japan signed the biodiversity treaty and secondly, could you summarize to us how in figures this increase in ODA that Japan is announcing now and any other, and compare that with last year figures or something like that? Yes.
Well, okay, to take the first question first, the Biodiversity Convention. The signing will take place at 3:30 this afternoon. And, well, it's embargoed until signing, but I think I can mention that the signing will be done by Mr. Nakamura, our Environment Minister, as well as by Ambassador Akao, who is a delegate to this conference. With respect to your second question, what we are doing here is to announce at this stage what we'll be doing with respect to this rather narrow field of ODA, which is directly related to the environment. The larger question of what we may be doing with respect to our official development assistance as a whole is a matter that requires further consideration. And
the 7.7 is only to environmentally related projects?
It is only to environmentally related projects. That is the point I wanted to stress. And again, let me repeat, those projects, for example, in the fields of living environment, forest conservation and reforestation or afforestation, anti-pollution, protection of the natural environment, that is, for example, protection of wildlife, studies on water resources, conservation of the soil, and so forth, and some anti-disaster measures such as flood control and so forth.
Let me ask this more specifically. This 7.7 is new money. That adds up to how much in the past?
Let me simply say that although the larger question of what we'll be doing with respect to our total official development assistance is something that we will have to consider further when we say that we will increase this portion of ODA, which is directly related to environment, I think it's fair to say that we do it on the assumption that whatever we'll be doing with respect to the larger pie, that is the total offshore development assistance, would probably be large enough to accommodate the increases in in environment-related assistance.
Just a final follow-up. Let me just rephrase this. How much was from ODA?
Oh, I see. Yes. In the past, I can address only the past, and I'll get to you. In the past, let's say, for example, in the 3 years that I have mentioned, in the 3 years for which the total was $3.1 billion US, roughly this environmentally related official development assistance has been about 10% of our total ODA. Yes?
Yes, I'd like to ask you about the proposed addressing of the conference by Mr. Miyazawa, either by television or by video. Is it correct, as I have been told, that Mr. Strong, the Secretary of the conference, wanted this, and Mr. Boutros-Ghali, the Secretary General of the United Nations, ruled it out of order?
Well, I would not like to comment on whatever may or may not have taken place within the United Nations system. Let me simply say that our basic objective was to find an appropriate way of making Prime Minister Miyazawa's views known to the participants of this conference. We explored various options in consultation with the organizers of the conference. And what has been proved feasible was the way in which it was handled this morning. That is, the president of the conference, President Collor, announcing that his statement will be included as an official record of this conference. And we do appreciate this very generous gesture on the part of the president of the conference. Yes?
I have questions concerning the details of why the tape was not played. First of all, when was this tape made, and when did the Japanese delegation here learn that it would not be played at the conference?
Well, the idea was to present the statement. What we were exploring was the possibility of presenting the statement audiovisually through satellite communication. When you talk about satellite communication, there does arise the question of exactly how you can synchronize the actual speaking into the microphone and the actual airing. And the original idea was to have it broadcast live? That would have been very difficult because of the need to synchronize everything. So what we did was to have this presentation ready to be sent by satellite communication at the hour which would be closest to the airing on this end. That is, the satellite transmission was made this morning prior to the beginning of the conference. Yes?
There was a second question.
Oh, yes.
When did the Japanese delegation learn that it would not be aired at the conference?
In the course of this morning. Yes?
I'm still trying to get clear on this funding announced by the Prime Minister. Am I correct in thinking that at this point, this does not represent new and additional funding?
It depends on how you define new and additional money. We are certainly, on the one hand, we are certainly trying to expand the official development assistance. And we have, I think, a good record on that in the sense of having increased our official development assistance every year by, I think, about 10%. although we haven't made the projection as to how much our official development assistance will be increasing in the years to come, we have focused on environment-related assistance and have made this intention clear that in this field there will be an increase of about 50%, there will be about a 50% increase over the present level. That is, the trend is for increasing the overall ODA, and the trend is very definitely for a substantial increase in that kind of assistance which is related directly to environment.
Can I follow up, please?
Yes.
Does this mean, though, that the environmentally related assistance will take money from other projects in ODA which are not
Well,
environmentally
it was with that question in mind, that I said that when we make this intention known, we do it with the thought that whatever total increase in our official development assistance we may have would probably be large enough to accommodate this increase in environment-related assistance without disrupting the pattern which has existed so far.
When will that be announced, the overall ODA for the next 5 years?
Well, that we don't know yet. That will have to be considered later. Yeah, the gentleman at the back.
What this money to be spent on? Is it to be spent on Rio projects, or is it going to be bilateral aid? Is it Agenda 21, or is it bilateral aid?
Well,
And second question,
yes.
what is your present percentage level of GNP?
Yes. Okay. I was saying earlier that when we say environment-related ODA, we devote this sort of ODA to things like, well, let me be a little more specific. When I say the living environment, it means like things like sewage control, emission control, waste disposal, and forest conservation, reforestation, anti-pollution measures, energy-saving measures, wildlife protection, water resources protection, soil conservation, and so forth. Now, those are the areas. The methods would be a combination of bilateral and multilateral. The bilateral portion being either loans or grants or technical assistance. So it's a combination of all these areas. And with respect to your second question, the percentage of our ODA to GNP, according to the latest available figure, which was the figure for 1990, was 0.31%. In 1991, it may have increased somehow. Follow-up? Yes.
Does this announcement today make Japan clearly the world's leader in environmental aid?
That is for you to decide, and that is not for me to answer. And I think it is a proof of the seriousness and the very active spirit in which we are prepared to contribute to the resolution of the problems of environment and development in the world. I think I have time for one more question, please.
First, I would like to know why Mr. Miyazawa didn't come here. And secondly, I would like to know what is the, we know now that the percentage of the ODA in GNP, but I would like to know the total amount of ODA in Japan.
Yes. Firstly, let me try to answer your second question first. Again, there is a question of accounting. For that reason, the latest available official figure for total ODA is, here we are. In 1990, it was $9,069,000,000. And although we haven't had the final tally for 1991, we expect that it has exceeded 10 billion. And since I'm running out of time, let me finish this briefing by responding to your first question, that is why the Prime Minister has been unable to come to this conference. First, as a background, Japan is now in the process of probing for ways in which we can actively contribute to the international community, in which we can actively contribute to the shaping of a new global order. The shaping of a new global order has several important components. One component is obviously this question of the global environment, and that is an area where we would like to make active contribution. But there is another important area, which is the area of contributing to peace and security in the world. And this has posed to Japan a new task, which is that although we are a country, because of its experience because of its experience of the defeat in the war, have enjoined ourselves from engaging in any kind of war or dispatching of our forces abroad for combat purposes. We have come to feel increasingly that we should, like any other country, make our contribution to international peacekeeping activities under the United Nations. And for that reason, we have presented to our National Diet a bill which would enable the dispatching of our self-defense forces to participate in the United Nations peacekeeping activities. This has been a subject of very considerable domestic debate, and that bill has been debated in the Diet for a long time, and it is now before the lower house, the House of Representatives, and it is coming to a crunch in terms of the bill being voted. And this crucial part of the deliberation of the PKO bill unfortunately coincided with this summit conference of the UNCED. And the Prime Minister had been trying very hard to explore ways in which he would be able to free himself from his parliamentary duties to come here, but it has proved impossible. That is the background. But the Prime Minister also has conveyed to the President of Brazil and Mr. Strong and others that his inability to come to Rio de Janeiro in no way detracts from the importance that we attach to the question of environment and development, and that is the reason why he was anxious that his positions, his ideas, and so forth be made known to this conference. I'm running out of time. Thank you very much for joining me a number of times. The briefing is over.
Is Japan the largest